Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the temporary Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. Today's episode comes to you courtesy of my amazing patrons. Once a month, patrons vote on what commander they'd like to see in an upcoming episode, and the commander that gets the most votes wins. And the commander that they chose for this episode is Ruxa, Patient Professor. Ruxa is a 4/4 Bear Druid for 2 green that says, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature card with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand. Creatures you control with no abilities get ++1, and you may have creatures you control with no abilities assign their combat damage as though they weren't blocked. So, this is the ultimate vanilla commander. A commander that cares about creatures that are vanilla. That means no abilities whatsoever. So, yeah, there are plenty of fantastic creatures out there that have absolutely no abilities that make up for that with power and toughness, and then others, which we can make a lot of, tokens, that don't have any abilities, that can get a buff from this. And keep in mind, we can get a lot of damage through, because even if our opponents block, it does not matter. Our vanilla creatures are going to be hitting them anyways when we want them to be. And of course, on top of that, if our vanilla creatures are taken out, Ruxa can get them back both on ETB and on attack trigger. So yeah, there's a lot going on for this Bear Druid Professor. Now, on this episode, I'm going to be taking you through different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. Also, keep in mind that every single card in this deck, including the commander, is less than $1, so it's a very budget-friendly deck. And of course, also, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, which we can pay 2 to tap and sacrifice to get a basic into play tapped. Next up, we've got some other great turn 2/1 ramp spells with Search for Tomorrow and Wild Growth. Search for Tomorrow is going to get us a basic into play untapped after we spend it for 2. Wild Growth is a great aura that's going to let us have a land tap for initial green, and Wolfhill Haven does the exact same thing but at 2 mana, and also we can sacrifice it and make a 2/2 wolf, which of course is actually a vanilla creature, so our commander really cares about that, can pump it and help get that damage through. Moving on, some other 2 mana ramp though, we've got Rampant Growth. Go get a basic into play tap. Scourge Tribe Elder does the exact same thing. Edge of Autumn will do the exact same thing if we've got 4 or fewer lands, and if not, we can cycle it to sacrifice a land. Next up at 3 mana, we've got Cultivate, 2 basics, 1 into our hand, 1 into play tap. This is Pilgrimage. Go get 2 basic forests and get 1 into play tapped and 1 into your hand. But if you've got Spell Mastery, you can actually search for 3 basic forests instead. Grow from the Ashes. If we kick it, we get 2 basics into play untapped, if not just 1. But now the real stars of the show, let's talk about the vanilla creatures. Elvish Warrior, Terrain Elemental, and Swordwise Centaur each just cost 2 mana. The Warrior is going to be a 2/3 in the Terrain Elemental, and the Centaur are going to be 3/2s. Again, keep in mind, our commander makes them even more efficient. That +1/+1 is a massive boost, and also again, we can get damage through with them if we want to. So, moving on, even more efficient Colonian Tusker, a 3/3 for just 2 mana, and Araska Frillback and Alpine Grizzly, 4 2s for just 3 mana. Yeah, these can hit really hard, really early. Speaking of hitting hard, how about Leatherback Baloth, a 4/5 for just 3 mana, again, basically a 5/6 for 3 mana thanks to our commander. Bone Horde, which is just a 0/0 germ when this comes into play, and yeah, that is going to be a vanilla creature, which also gets +X for the number of creature cards in all graveyards, so this can be huge. And then Garruk's Gorehorn, a 7/3 for 5 mana, but basically, again, an 8/4 for just 5 mana. Yeah, this can hit hard very quickly. But of course, we've got plenty of ways to make a lot of vanilla creature tokens that can cause a lot of problems for our opponents. So yeah, Squirrel Nest, make a land, tap to create a 1/1 squirrel, which again basically is a 2/2 Paradox Zone. Speaking of counters, enters battlefield with 1 growth counter on it. At the beginning of our end step, we double those counters, then we get that big of a fractal token, that many counters on it, and this doubles again on every single end step. So first we're going to get a 2/2, then a 4/4, then, 8/8. You get what I mean. But again, on top of that, again, our commander is pumping it an Anthem effect and helping get that damage through. Same Worm Convergence, massive worms throughout the game. At the beginning of your end step, you get a 5/5 worm, which again is basically a 6/6 thanks to our commander. And on top of that, creatures with flying can attack your planeswalkers you control, so a great way to protect ourselves as well. One more enchantment I want to highlight, though, with this is Zendikar's Royal Landfall. Land comes into play, we get a 2/2 Elemental, which again is basically a 3/3 with this commander. And yeah, like we've talked about, plenty of ways to get more and more lands into play. Spore Mound, a creature that can help us out as well. Landfall, make a 1/1. Rampaging Bale, an even bigger way. Landfall, make a 4/4. Yeah, every single time we have a land come into play, we get a 4/4, which is basically a 5/5. Pretty ridiculous. Moving on, Wolfbriar Elemental. Let's multi-kick this a lot because for every single time we do, we get a 2/2 wolf for each time it was kicked. Mirror Battlesphere enters the battlefield. We get 4 vanilla 1/1 mirror tokens. Verdant Force makes us a vanilla creature, a saproling, on every single upkeep. Not just our own, so with each trip around the table, that is 4 creatures. With our commander, 8 total power. And again, not unblockable, but the damage is basically unblockable when we need it to be, so yeah, we can get really deadly really quickly. And speaking of a bunch of 1/1s, how about Hooded Hydra? Enters battlefield, X counters on it. When it dies, we get that many 1/1s for each counter on it. And yeah, this can be a lot. And of course, again, those are vanilla 1/1s. Speaking of vanilla, Emrakul's Evangel. Tap, sacrifice it and any number of other non-Eldrazi creatures, which is probably going to be all of our other creatures, and we get a 3/2 for every single one of those sacrificed. And again, those are vanilla 3/2s, which are basically 4/3s. So yeah, we can kind of upgrade, especially with our small tokens. But another creature that can really help us out throughout the game is Tovolar's Huntmaster. Enters the battlefield, we get 2 2/2s, and when it flips over to the pack leader, enters the battlefield or attacks, we get 2 2/2s. And yeah, we can also have our wolves or werewolves fight a creature we don't control, which is great, but yeah, an absurd amount of power every single time this triggers. But we also have some spells that can really help us out as well, making a lot of tokens. Fungal Sprouting, we're going to get X Saprolings, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. Howl the Night Pack, this one cares about our forests, and yeah, we've got a ton of ways to get a ton of forests into play. Like we've talked about earlier, you get a 2/2 green wolf creature token for every single forest you control, and again, basically 3/3s. Speaking of big creatures though, Crash the Party, create a tapped 4/4 green rhino warrior creature token for each tapped creature you control. Yeah, we're going to be really aggressive with this deck. We can cast the instant speed, and we get a massive army of rhinos, which again are basically going to be 5/5s instead of 4/4s, kind of like doubling up your army all at once. Yeah, this can be really absurd. And then we've got the very flexible Titania's Command. Choose 2, exile target player's graveyard. You gain 1 life for each card exiled this way. Search for life for 2 lands, put them on the battlefield tapped. Get 2 2/2 bears, or you get 2/+1 counters on each creature you control. So a lot of very relevant modes. Yeah, we can get rid of a graveyard if it's pesky, gaining a lot of life if we need that. Go ramp if we really need to. Or yeah, just basically get, 2 bears, which are going to be basically 3/3s again, thanks to our commander. But of course, they're going to be even bigger than that, and so are all of our other creatures if we choose that last mode. Getting 2 counters on all of our creatures, that can be huge. But of course, we've got plenty of other ways to make our creatures even deadlier. Cultivate our blades. We've got an option, Fabricate 2. So when it enters the battlefield, we can get 2 1/1 servos, which again are vanilla, or we can get those counters on this Cultivate our blades to make it into a 3/3, and when it attacks, each other attacking creature can get +3/+3 then. Yeah, that can be a very deadly swing. Speaking of which, scale up. Until end of turn, target creature control becomes a 6/4, or we can overload this and make every one of our creatures a 6/4. That can be fantastically brutal. Speaking of which, Predatory Rampage. Creature control at +3/+3 until end of turn. Each creature opponent's control has to block. So this can be a big boost of power for all of our creatures. And we can force our opponent's creatures to block so we can take out their creatures. And yeah, this can be a massive play. But when it comes to massive plays and massively effective cards, there is one in this deck that, in my opinion, stands above the rest, and that is the Golden Pig of this deck. That's right, the number 1 card out of 99. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Muraganda Petroglyphs, an enchantment that costs 3 and a green that very simply says, creatures with no abilities get +2/+2. Yeah, it's like this commander and this card were a match made in heaven. This is a vanilla commander that loves vanilla creatures. And yeah, this is a vanilla enchantment that says, hey, those vanilla creatures, I got your back. +2/+2 for just 4 mana in total, a perpetual +2/+2. This is incredible. This is fantastic. And this is most definitely, in my opinion, again, the Golden Pig of this deck. But of course, we've got some other great anthems as well, like Gaia's Anthem. All of our creatures get ++1. Hall of Triumph, choose green when it comes into play. Our green creatures get ++1. And Sylvan Anthem does the exact same thing. Green creatures you control get ++1. And on top of that, whenever a green creature is battlefield under control, scry 1. So yeah, these last two pump a lot of our creatures, are very effective. And Sylvan Anthem, again, can give us a lot of card selection throughout the game. And speaking of card selection and card advantage, we've got you meet in a tavern. Choose one, form a party, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can reveal any number of creatures and put them into your hand. Rest go on the bottom of your library random order, or we can start a brawl instead. Creature you control at +2/+2. So yeah, this can either be a great way to get some card advantage or pump our team. Harmonize, just straight up card advantage. Draw 3 cards. Lifecraft for Bestiary. Beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, so some great card selection there. And on top of that, whenever you cast a creature spell, you can pay initial green. If we do, we draw a card. And yeah, we've got a lot of creatures to take advantage with this. And our creatures can help us out even further with Colossal Majesty. At the beginning of your upkeep, you control a creature's power 4 or greater, which we definitely will. Draw a card. Garrick's Pack Leader. Speaking of creatures and power, whenever the creature with power 3 or greater enters battlefield under control, draw a card. This can draw us an absurd amount of cards throughout the game. Keeper of Fables. Each combat, we can draw basically 3 cards, pretty much guaranteed. Whenever one or more non-human creatures you control deal combination to a player, draw a card. And yeah, the vast majority of creatures in this are not human, so we'll be drawing a lot of cards thanks to this. And speaking of drawing cards, when it comes to dealing combat damage, Hunter's Insight, an instant for just 3 mana. Choose a creature control. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. And yeah, since we can assign that combat damage through blocking, good luck opponents trying to stop this. Mouth, make a 3/3 hippo. That's nice, a vanilla creature. On top of that, Feed. Draw a card for each creature you control with power 3 or greater. Again, that's going to be the vast majority of them, drawing us a lot of cards. Speaking of which, Shamanic Revelation. How about you just draw a card for every single creature you control, regardless of the power? But when it comes to their power, you gain 4 life for each one of your big creatures, power 4 or greater. This can gain us a lot of life, draw us a ton of cards. Yeah, this can be really absurd. But when it comes to throwing a wrench into our opponent's plans, let's talk about cards like Primal Might, Broken Bond, and Return to Nature. Primal Might, hey, you want to pump a creature? Great. +X/+X until end of turn, and it's going to fight up to 1 creature you don't control. Broken Bond, destroy an artifact or enchantment, and also go get a land from your hand right into play. Help yourself ramp as well. Return to Nature, very flexible. Destroy an artifact or an enchantment or exile a card from a graveyard. So yeah, this kind of flexibility can really help us out in a lot of situations. But we also have some creatures that can help us out as well. Rex Sage, enters the battlefield, destroy an artifact or enchantment. Cankerbloom, sacrifice it by paying 1 and choose 1. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or we can proliferate if we really want to. Beast Within, hey, destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3. Keep in mind, if we want to destroy one of our own things, we can. And again, that is a vanilla 3/3 that gets pumped by our commander. Next up, how about a creature that can repeatedly take things out? Outland Liberator. Well, the front side does not. We can pay 1 and sacrifice, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or, once we get to the backside, Frenzied Trapbreaker. Yeah, we can do the exact same thing. Or when it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment depending player control. So yeah, this can get rid of quite a few things for us. Speaking of which, how about some mass removal with Azuri's Predation, Fade from History, and Nevinyrral's Disc. Azuri's Predation, this is game ending. For each creature opponents control, we get a 4/4, which again is a vanilla creature. Each of those tokens fights a different one of those creatures. So basically, take out probably, most of the creatures, and also have a giant army waiting to swing next turn. Fade from History, each player controls an artifact or an enchantment, gets a 2/2 green bear, which again is vanilla, and destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Nevinyrral's Disc, basically a panic button for us if we need to wipe everything. A great way to do it. Enters the battlefield tapped, pay 1 to tap, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And of course, we've got some great ways to protect some of our key pieces as well. Wrap and Vigor regenerate every single one of our creatures, which can be a fantastic way to protect our team for cheap. And then Swiftfoot Boots, equip creatures hexproof and haste. So yeah, we can protect our commander and swing right away with it. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's quickly talk about the lands. Colony Garden enters the battlefield tapped, but we get a 0/1 plant, which again is vanilla. Or Underneath the Vastwood enters the battlefield tapped. We can tap for a green, or we can tap and get a counter on every single green creature that enters the battlefield this turn. And then Colony Ambush, a great MDFC land that we can, with the front side, actually have a creature we control fight a creature we don't control. And then we're also going to be running Mirrored Landscape and Blighted Woodland, each of which can help ramp us and get more lands into play tapped. And finally, to round out our mana base, of course, we've got, well, you guessed it, a bunch of forests. Yeah, a ton of them. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, every single card in this deck is less than $1, so it's a very budget-friendly deck with an estimated cost of just $27.64. And also keep in mind that estimated cost does include basic lands at 10 cents a piece, so if you already have those basics, there's some extra savings for you there. Speaking of extra savings, you might be able to save even more by buying this deck on TCG Player and utilizing heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too. Though do keep in mind this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. And with that, today's episode is coming to a close, so yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.